back to Zero Production Value Movie Reviews. I'm Eric Hoernke, and today I'm going to be discussing the 1995 film Outbreak, directed by Wolfgang Peterson. So, a heavyweight cast bolsters this medical thriller set from the mid-90s, where an Ebolaesque virus runs rampant on a California town. And if you don't know what Ebola is, it's a pretty bad disease that had, at the time, well over a 90% mortality rate that basically liquefied your insides and pretty much killed you in probably about the most horrible way imaginable. So, and with all the quarantine and COVID-19 stuff, any of these movies that are out there that have to do with pathogens or viruses or outbreaks are kind of getting a bit more attention, a bit more watchability. I've actually liked this movie since the mid-90s when it first came out. It's, in this day and age, it seems very cheesy, but at the time I liked it quite a bit. It's still somewhat of a guilty pleasure for me. Like I said, this is directed by Wolfgang Peterson. These sort of big budget, epic, not really epic, but big budget, blockbustery sort of movies with a lot of stars in it are sort of his wheelhouse. He's directed such films as Air Force One and Troy. So this is actually a little bit more intimate than those. It's kind of a larger scale with bigger effects. This feels very much like a Michael Crichton type of thriller book, or like a Robin Cook, or kind of some sort of amalgam there. It stars Dustin Hoffman as an Army medical doctor. Back in the mid-90s, you got to remember Dustin Hoffman was still rather an A-list star and could helm a movie like this and ride it to, box office success. Co-starring Rene Russo and Cuba Gooding Jr., who were at that time still stars kind of on the rise. And then you also have elder statesman Hollywood in the form of Morgan Freeman and Donald Sutherland. So all in all, and then there's also Patrick Dempsey, who plays a smaller role, but I mean that's a pretty stellar cast for the time. So as with a lot of these movies, when we get into it, like for example, if you're going to do a movie about tornadoes, or you're going to do a movie about space or asteroids or something, or volcanoes, right? You get like a crash tutorial on whatever the topic matter is. So in this one, as we get into it, we get a bit of a quick and kind of neat tutorial that runs through the basic levels of biohazard that the CDC has and the various precautions that they have to go through as the levels of viruses get more and more intense. They're either pretty much kill you faster, and as they get deadlier, and there is like no known cure for them. So we begin with basically the Patrick Dempsey character, who gets a little monkey from Africa off a boat through a wholesaler kind of thing, and he's trying to do some shady back deal to get money, and it all goes awry. He gets scratched by the monkey, and he releases the monkey somewhere in Northern California. Unbeknownst to everybody involved, this monkey is obviously carrying a horrible, contagious disease. And of interesting to note, this is the host of the disease, as they point out, and therefore it doesn't get sick. It just carries the disease, infecting everybody willy-nilly that comes into its path. So basically, this small California town suffers an outbreak of this horrible disease, and all of our stars are pretty much army doctors of some point. Rene Russo actually goes off, leaves them, and goes to the CDC, but they all wind up coming back together and being on the same team. So the army rolls into this small California town, setting up a perimeter, and they have various agendas. Obviously, the Dustin Hoffman character is hell-bent. He plays the benevolent man. He is actually quite an annoying character, but he, like, with little decorum, with little regard for the chain of command, he is all about saving the people, saving lives, everything else be damned, and he's very loud and vocal and stomping about, regarding it. And under him are also Kevin Spacey's in it. Also, I forgot Kevin Spacey. But so, and he has his group all kind of helping him and working towards that agenda. And he sort of goes off the rails from what his superiors want him to do in an effort to find something that can curtail this disease and save these people in this town. The upper people, signified by, at its highest level, the Donald Sutherland character, and under him, Morgan Freeman, they have a history with this disease, the virus. If I get the nomenclature messed up, I apologize. I'm not obviously well versed in the science of it, but they have a different sort of agenda. Sure, they would like to save the people, but they are kind of harboring this thing as sort of a biological weapon and sort of want to maintain that and their role in it, which you also learn. But this leads up to a confrontation where they actually have to decide whether or not the town needs to essentially be cleansed, i.e. reduced to ash by a bomb, in order to nominally kill the virus to prevent further spread, but also it keeps their weapon intact and in their possession and not out of their control. And of course, this doesn't sit well with Dustin Hoffman's character at all when he figures out what's going on. So they obviously clash, and obviously our benevolent hero goes off the rails and does what he needs to do, up to and including where he's got a radio and he's communicating with the plane, and these guys got military orders, and he's just, pulling at their heartstrings. I mean, it is cheesy, star-driven monologue, at its 90s finest, let's say. So this plays really obviously loose and fast with science and with like military hierarchy and a bunch of that stuff. But grounding in reality is not really where this movie is trying to make its money. It's just meant to be a fun, fast, slick, action-filled, tense, crowd-pleasing thriller. And it delivers sort of exactly on that level. You don't have to give it too much thought because they pretty much tell you every step of the way how to think about it. Nominally, I would say that this is not a very good movie, but like I said, I have a bit of a soft spot for it because I really remember liking it when it first came out. And also, I think it gets a bit of an upcheck because we don't get very many of these. I mean, if you think about, I'm sure there's a lot of like B, C, D, E list movies that deal with sort of virus pandemics and stuff like that. But as far as major big budget Hollywood stuff coming out, there really hasn't been a whole lot. Like between this and Contagion, there's really not a whole lot of heck out there for like actual virus outbreak kind of stuff that doesn't cross the boundary into something more like a zombie film than an actual medical drama thriller thing, And obviously Outbreak sits in the more, outlandish, outlandish sort of blockbustery sort of movie, whereas Contagion kind of sits in the more, like a more realistic house of like, if this would actually occur, this is probably more like what this would look like. If you've seen the two movies, I think of like post-apocalyptic thrillers that came out at the same time. There was The Book of Eli that had Denzel Washington in it, and then there was The Road that had Viggo Mortensen in it. Nominally dealing with about the same kind of subject matter, very different movies, let's say. And this is kind of the same ballpark. But like I said, this entertains as a cheesy, star-driven thriller. You're going to watch it and have a good time with it and not think too much about it. That's pretty much all there is to it. So overall, I would give Outbreak, directed by Wolfgang Peterson, a C+. I love you. I appreciate you. As always, I'm Eric Hoernke, rhymes with turnkey. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. And this has been a production of Zero Value.